who I understand is Laurel's colleague,
I am, yes.
is here to talk to us today about how to get students to own their own learning. So looking forward to that. Welcome everyone, and I just want to make sure that I have it focused on you. Yes, we're good.
Perfect. And thanks for coming. Yeah, that's funny that you introduced me as Laurel's colleague, because Laurel's probably the reason I'm here. I teach grade 2 at the same school as Laurel in Meaford. It's a K-3 school right now. It's my first year at that school because my school closed last year, and I've been at that school almost my whole time. So we've merged to a new staff, and Laurel has been that critical colleague this year that I don't think I've ever really had that person that kind of niggles at you and helps you and is there for you in her own strange way. So she said, "Hey, you should come to Barn." I said, "Yeah, that's that place last year. I heard they brought pillows or something." So this was great. I don't know. It sounded wonderful. Whatever was going. Oh, that's the place where they talk about what you do after school. That's what it was. There was some of my colleagues, and they, it wasn't just about PD. It was looking into you and your well-being. So that's what I remember. Anyway. So yeah, my title's not the same as what it says on there, but I'm pretty sure that's how it's gone for a lot of us. So my title ended up being Developing Successful Learners, and this is really just my journey, and Laurel gave me a journal, and that is one of the key things that I found that's been successful. So like everyone, we started out, well, what am I looking for? What are the problems? And so I looked at my class, and I just put initials up there, but it really came down to learning skills and being engaged and, the mindset thing, looking for how to get to green zone, which I've used the zones. Everyone knows about the zones of self-regulation. So I've used those trying to get kids to develop self-regulation, and I was doing those things. But I just really wanted my kids to be in charge of their own learning. I wanted them to be not relying on me, and I wanted to build independence. So I just made this list, and I won't read it, but my question started out was, how can I engage them? How can I engage learners? And then it became, even the first day of Barn, after I got talking to everyone, how can I empower learners? I was just trying to find that right word. And then it became, how can I develop intrinsic learners? So I looked at what intrinsic was, and that really means that you're devoting yourself just to purely learn, and you're motivated, you're self-directed. Digitally fluent was interesting to me. You use constructive feedback, and you're socially and emotionally engaged. So that sounded pretty good. Yeah, I thought that was okay. And then I was reading at the same time. We were doing George Couros. If anyone's read, I recommend. The Innovator's Mindset. We were doing a book club at school, so I was at the same time reading that book, and did some more research, and this chart came out, which is looking at people who are compliant learners, those lovely little quiet people who just do what you tell them to do, which are lovely, because you just tell them to, and they're doing it, and they're, and are they really learning though? And then you looked at the engaged ones, so they're interested, and those are great too, but looking for them to be empowered, learning because they want to learn, not because it's what I picked for us to learn, or just because it's what we have to do. So it's that really taking it to the next level. So then I was reading some more, doing some more research, and this one paragraph hit me that sparked this idea of driving your own learning. So George Couros says that, if we're really in charge of what we're learning, we're more engaged. So I wrote thanks, Barn, because that's really what this has been for me, is me having a chance to learn whatever I wanted to learn, however I wanted to learn it, whenever I wanted to learn it, and I've decided I just really like learning, and that's something I guess I never really would have identified as me before. So I like learning, so how do I get kids to like learning? Another thing that I read was that if they have autonomy, mastery, and purpose, then they will also be successful learners. And then Kelly, I actually reached out to Kelly because I heard you speak the first day about gradeless learning and working on trying to get kids engaged. So I've quoted you here as well. Thanks for sharing your research with me. That, you know, you were trying to do some of the same things. You're trying to get them to be involved and invest in their own learning, which again really hit me. That's what I want kids to do. I don't want me to be their spark. I want them to just want to learn. And so anyway, I changed my question again. How can I help students own their own learning? So this project hit me when I hit this, oh, this is from George. The 8 things that you look for in the classroom for voice, choice, time for reflection, all these great things. And then I was reading some more, and it said that you have to get kids to set their own goals. So this lovely Pinterest type looking thing here is, the steps in goal setting. And then I found, so smile. So see yourself achieving your goals, move towards your goals. So we started this whole goal settings part of our time. So that led me to this. This was going to be okay, we're going to do this. So for March 29th, we're going to launch this idea of driving your own learning. And I thought if the kids could actually create, because I teach everything, I'm grade 2, so they can create a vehicle. They can build their own, whatever they want. So totally leave it open. So they could use the STEM kit, they use Connects, they could use anything they wanted to build an actual vehicle. So it became a science project and wide open, but it kind of became my barn science project too. So I was trying to see if we co-planned together what they wanted to achieve. I also knew that they needed to know from my research that they were learners and what they could do as their strengths in learning. I knew that they had to choose their activities to help them develop focus on what they were trying to develop, and I knew that they had to reflect. So those became the 4 things that, okay, if we do these, then they will be less reliant on me, they'll be more engaged. And I also thought, okay, just also, if they do that, how are we going to measure this? Because the scientist in me said, okay, I have to measure this somehow. So we set goals in mental math, so, the good old Mad Minute, addition to 20, which is grade 2 curriculum, their reading level, which we're always assessing anyway, and spelling, because I started to work with a new program this year that breaks spelling into differentiated things. So I thought, okay, we could do this. So that was the project, and there's Matthew building his project. So then I conferenced with them, one-on-one, and we set goals. I said, here's your reading level now. How far do you think you'll get by May? And that was, they picked. Same with mental math. Here's what you can do now. In 7 weeks from now, same thing. And spelling. In 7 weeks, where do you think you'll be? And so I also asked them some questions about themselves as learners. And some interesting things came up. This is where it got even more interesting. I found out that there was one girl the only one in the class who said that ended up having a fixed mindset. Are you wise or are you smart? No. She was the only one in the entire 20 that said no. And then I showed her reading level from September till at that point, and she was amazed. You could just see her, wow, I didn't know that I had progressed. And so I thought to myself, so why haven't I ever shared with the kids their progress? Do they really know that they're progressing? And then my friend Carter, who came in at the beginning of the year, and really, you could tell he's really a high achiever. He wants to achieve well, but was not able to accept mistakes at all. So the classic, as he says, I used to freak out and cry when I got something wrong, but now I just go back and do it. And so I said, so what has made you do that? And he said, well, you made me. So I don't know what, I do know, we've worked a lot on mindset over the years. So that was encouraging me that there's something to this. And then this became what we've spent a lot of time on, is learning how to learn. And I found out that kids, when I asked them, so what hinders you from learning? What makes it hard for you to learn? And they would talk about, it's too noisy. Now, I will say we don't have any walls. We're an open concept school, but it's not, coming from walls, it's not that much different, really. So, yeah, but the fact that they just said, a lot of them said, I need it quiet, I need it quiet, I need it quiet, was the overwhelming response. But they also, were saying things like, if I try, if I use my brain, if I make mistakes and use them. So they were incorporating the things that we were doing. But when I asked them, how do you learn best? They weren't really sure. And they didn't know, they just thought that learning had to be quiet. So I thought, okay, so they don't really know that people can learn differently. And at grade 2, I guess you wouldn't expect that maybe anyway. And then I asked them, I noticed that if asked if they like learning with others, like with other people, it's almost foreign. Like I was thinking, do I not ever let them talk to each other? Because they'd say, no, it has to be quiet. It has to be, there's too much noise. It has to be independent work time. So I thought, well, what if I asked them, when do people learn? So that became my next idea. So we did more stuff with learning styles. We did some learning style surveys. But this was incredible. So one day I just wrote, when do you learn? And it looks messy and, as everything often is. But it started out with, I learn every day I learn. And then it says, I learn when you're not talking to anyone is when you learn. And I put the 2 arrows here because, 5 minutes later as they're brainstorming, they say, oh, well, you learn when you talk to someone, which is totally the opposite from that. So even them just thinking through this, and I had to cut them off. This just kept going and going and going. So we left it there. The next day, we came back, and that's when we put the color coding on there. And we came up with this red circle there. And we've kept that up as, can we learn? And so are you learning right now? Well, are you focused? Are you thinking? Do you know the blue one? Do you know what you need to learn? Like the learning goals, making it explicit. So that was kind of neat. That was huge in what we did. So then we continued to just talk about how do you learn? And I realized that kids never get taught how to learn. We just see them, they come in, we just start teaching them, and we've never really, maybe it's my own thinking too, but I guess we just have never really taught them how to learn. And no one ever taught me how to learn, so you just did it. So it became a lot of media literacy, as you can see. We use these, pieces as media texts, and we were trying to, just make sense of them. So I was doing a fishbowl activity one day where we were trying to develop talkings, and so we had the top, how do you learn? I had that, the bottom one, the learning process. So I just put that up there, but I took the words off, and I just left the arrows, and I put the words, and I wanted them to be able to figure out how the learning process happens, which is pretty amazing for 7-year-olds, really. And so we had some volunteers sit in the middle of the carpet, and the rest of us stood around and watched them talk. And from that, we learned not only about how to learn and how learning is a process that is cyclical and keeps happening and never really ends, but we also learned how to have talk, and because we were having some issues with being in collaborative groups. So I also did some learning styles with them. This is one of my students on the carpet. We always do some mindfulness things, the zones at the bottom, and then the effort meter, which was interesting, rate yourself on your effort right now, which was kind of neat too. But these, I got thinking, I wrote down in here that I wanted to read one of my little journal notes. So this is April 5th. Really all this mindset and anchor chart focus is based on how we are still all just trying to understand and help kids understand how learning happens. And I think, really, like this researchers, that's all of the things that are coming out published, it's the same thing. We're still trying to figure out what works as educators, as learners. So, So that's what happened. I've been using Fresh Grade. I don't know if you know about Fresh Grade. It's digital portfolio. It's Canadian, and so it's great. We've been using it for feedback. So here are some of they upload their videos or their pictures. This is some of their plans for their learners. Oh, did it not work? Oh dear, sorry.
There we go. There we go.
So it's like Sway or anything else, but it's just my way to connect with parents at home. It's a great program. I can talk about that later if you want, but it's just some examples of the feedback underneath the pictures there. And there was one of their I posted so parents can see and kids can see their goal, or their mad minute idea. And then I posted the fact that, oh yeah, you did it, you met your goal. So then when we were, we continued learning, building teamwork, teaching them how to talk to each other. There's a great book, Thanks for the Feedback. So if you're trying to get kids to make use of feedback, I found that one was really great. So then this happened. We were learning about how to learn and talking about how learning happens. So I usually read the Dr. Seuss book, Oh, the Places You Go, as the send-off, the end of the year, away you go. But it just seemed to fit with what we were doing. So I read it to them. And for once, they actually got all the symbolism. Like grade 2s can't really make sense that a road is not just a road that you drive on, that a road is actually a way to, idea for learning. They were so getting it. It was so exciting. And the next day, they said, well, all of these goals that we've set, shouldn't we show people that we're meeting them? So we decided that we should post them. So this is our little version of this, setting our goals here. And we just broke into little groups, and they painted what the road of learning would look like. And so these are all the roadblocks and the dark forests that you might have to go through, and the volcanoes exploding around you. This is a dragon that might just pop out, and it's their version of what might happen. But these are the stars of who had actually met their goals. So yellow was reading, green was mental math, and blue was spelling. So they were actually starting to reach their goals. This one was, I put this up because I thought this was huge that we used. I found this, it's called Mindset Works, so I recommend that as well. They send you newsletters once in a while, and this was in one of them. I started by asking the kids, just showing them the picture and saying, so who is learning here? And we did the four corners thing, this person's learning. Some people said that one, someone said neither of them, and some said both. And then we had a great discussion about what learning is, and then we've used this a lot, that how I'm just your coach, I can bring all the equipment, I can set up great activities to help you get better at something, but really I can't make you kick that ball. Whether it's in the game or whether it's in just practice time, it's really up to you. And so we've referred to that a lot. And then at a staff meeting we're talking about co-constructing, and so that really played into it as well. I tried to improve some of my assignments. So this is an example of a math assignment that we did, and I just kind of highlighted some of the things that really were in here, the choice that they got and how they would show it, how it's very clear learning goals, and then they of course had their chance to upgrade after they did it, and then myself as the coach and the guiding question person along the side. So the results, here are the quantitative results of my actual science project. It's not terribly impressive actually. The red is the middle term, how far their reading had progressed from the little black X at the beginning of the year. And the red is middle term, and then the purple has been since January. And then the ones that don't have purple either are already beyond grade 2, and I haven't tested them yet, it'll be in the next few weeks, or there wasn't about developing a better level. They're already reading at grade 3 or 4 level necessarily. They're getting better at how to respond to questions and those deeper learning things to do with reading. And so 10 out of 21 have met their rate of mental math addition. And unfortunately no one has met their spelling goals. So that brings us back to goal setting, and how the first day I asked them to set their goals. Maybe they didn't have a whole lot of understanding of time or what that really meant. So that's a whole other thing that we could work on. Came to SIPSA one day with my principal and some other coworkers. This came up, John, Hattie? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so this, I'm like, look, it's everywhere. Everything I'm doing is everywhere. It's surrounding us. It's everything that was in there, the classroom discourse, the non-threatening environment, tools, and making sure that you've got rich tasks is all in there. So then my big question I had to think, I'm like, well, what did I really answer? I don't know if I've answered anything other than just finding out about myself, but also about learning, is that how can I develop successful learners who invest in their own learning? And I think that's where I've learned, is how to get kids to invest. So if I had to say I had an answer, I put it in the form of a checklist so that as a teacher, starting out or even in the next month, I have to make sure that I do all these things. I have to make sure that our environment's safe. We have to build a team. You have to teach mindfulness. You have to teach how to learn. You have to goal set, provide rich learning opportunities. There's got to be voice and choice in what you do. Feedback, reflect, and celebrate every day. The celebrate, I find, we end every day with circle time on the carpet. Everyone sits down in a circle and we end with, so what are you celebrating in learning today? Or what are you celebrating as a learner today? And we don't get through everyone. Sometimes we do it in a pair and then share. Sometimes we just take ideas depending on how much time we have left. But I find that that is a wonderful way to end the day. It's changed the entire way that we go out to the coat hooks. You know, instead of that rush, it's that celebration piece, which is huge. And so, yeah, I'm so thankful for being able to do this, because my personal journey, I've journaled and learned and know that I now love learning, and I think I've started to figure out how to get kids to love learning and to learn. And my battery's probably going to die soon, so that's good timing. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
That's great.
That was great. If